Welcome to TRB Conversations, powered by Exco. I am Brian Morrissey. We're here at our little studio in Zuma, joined by Ryan McConville. Ryan is the Chief Product Officer at NBCUniversal. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you have a 100th anniversary. That makes you officially a legacy media brand.
Yes, in a good way, as we were just discussing before we got started. Yeah.
Legacy means a bequest, a gift. Look, bring us along the journey, right? For technology has come for media. When we go up and down the Quest set, I can remember, I think I first came here in 2007.
Yeah.
It is completely different. It's just dominated by the technology companies.
Yeah.
And there is media standing forlornly sometimes by the side. But talk me through about how you modernize the product experience at a legacy media company.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was actually thinking about this story on the walk over here, and the name rebooting. I have a digital background, so I didn't come from television. But the reason I came to NBCUniversal is that I think there was this moment in time with the advent of streaming and the digitization of TV, where the whole idea of a premium video advertising platform, call it TV, was being rebooted, right?
Yeah.
Being rebooted with new technology. And some of that was, call them legacy companies, like traditional broadcast companies, upgrading and evolving. But it was also being pushed by the advent of big tech into the TV space, right? The macro story that I like to tell, and I believe is true, and if you kind of look at all the news over the last 5 to 10 years, you can kind of see it, is big tech came in with their big tech toys, which is like first party data, automation, lower funnel measurement. They weren't like tied to traditional TV measurement, like all of those things, but they were kind of behind on the IP side. So what you've been seeing is them kind of buy sports rights and kind of get into the, Amazon bought MGM Studios. They're trying to beef up on the content side, whereas traditional broadcasters have rich content libraries and IP, and they've had to beef up on the technology side. But really what's being rebooted and reborn is this premium video platform powered by the best technology. So it's the best of big media and big tech kind of merged together.
I guess the question is always like, everyone comes from one side or the other. I used to cover agencies early in my career, and it was always the fight. It's like, okay, we've got the traditional agencies that are good at the brand stuff. They get in the client relationships because the interactive shops were like the corridor agencies, they used to call them, because they had to sit in the corridor during the pitch until they got called in at the last minute. Okay. Yeah, and then they would do the matching luggage, which is like make a website that looks like this creative thing that we're doing that's going to run on TV. And it was like, who's going to get there first? The people who know the technology side, or the people who are on the brand side. Something kind of similar here, because TV advertising particularly is changing, right? And it is changing in the direction of the internet, right? And I think it has an advantage of having seen what happened in the internet, right? And in the internet, the publishers, the media, got completely commoditized. Maybe slightly different, but how do you see that playing out as TV becomes more like the internet? For lack of
I think a lot of the story remains to be written, but I think, speaking for Comcast, NBCUniversal, and I put Comcast in front of NBC there for a reason, I think the unique combination of assets that Comcast has in particular give it great advantages in this sort of like meeting of big tech and big media, because Comcast owns its own ad technology with FreeWheel, right? And they've bolted onto that with acquisitions like Beeswax, which is now part of like an ad server that's like more performant, right? Like a Meta ad server, or like a big tech ad server, where it can start to optimize towards outcomes, not just deliver, publisher flighted impressions or something like that. You have the kind of internet data and set-top box data that's powered by the cable business, which is all in combination with our ads and our Peacock business. So there's a lot of the ingredients that you need to combine technology and media exist within the Comcast NBCUniversal family. And so a lot of what I'm doing is kind of putting those pieces together in a way that allows our platform to, compete with the best of them, if you will.
Yeah. I guess what I'm wondering is how look, there was a lot. I feel like there was maybe it was inevitable. There were a lot of like mistakes made where, I mean, a lot of the value was not accrued by the people who were making the content, right? People talk about ad tech taxes or whatnot, and like a lot of the ad dollars obviously got gobbled up by the tech platforms instead of, making their way to the people who are making the content. And we're seeing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I speak? I'd love to riff on that for a second, because I think it's so relevant both on the content and on the ad side. So like when you look at, let's just talk about content for a second. So, we are broadcasters of NFL, NBA, MLB, all the big sports moments and cultural moments across the board, SNL, the Today Show, Love Island, and some of these big cultural Bravo moments. When you look at like the content on social media that people are chatting about, the source of those stories is premium video, right? So like 100 billion social posts talking about what happened in the game, what happened on Love Island. It sort of is a feeder from the content side to those environments. So, arguably it deserves more credit because it's sort of it's the origin, right, of a lot of the cultural moments that get talked about in these other platforms. And then similarly, it's sort of a story as old as time. Like TV generates a lot of interest and demand, but the big tech companies that were born later or built their stacks later were good at kind of taking credit for the sort of last part of the journey. It's like, they're searching, they're buying, and we have last click attribution, right?
Yeah. They were cherry picking. That's what kids used to do when we were playing pickup basketball. They would hang out by the hoop. And
exactly.
They're not playing defense.
Exactly. And I think, advertisers also got tricked by that a little bit, where they thought they could just put all their money in performance channels, and we don't have to tick through the case studies, but I think it's come out recently that that's a problem. Like if you only kind of feed the bottom of the funnel, you kind of run out of new customers. And so we've been doing a lot of work with data. We're launching a new product called the Performance Insights Hub, which we announced at the upfronts, and it's going to be live in Q4 at the start of the broadcast year, which really kind of it gives marketers a view into the performance and the contribution of the TV platform. And the data is incredibly compelling, but also just validates a lot of things that I think you would think is very intuitive. Like we had an advertiser that advertised with us during the Olympics, Liquid Death, the water company.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot of people know that brand, or as much as some of the other water brands. So it's like a relatively new brand. And I was just on a panel with them this week with LiveRamp. And what they found was when they pre-exposed audiences to their brand message with 30-second storytelling creative inside these big cultural moments, and then they found similar audiences in their retail media network channels, and they were able to kind of run the data and do the overlap. The click-through rates on their ads for people pre-primed with ads in these cultural moments clicked at an 86% higher rate, and their CAC, their customer acquisition cost, the cost to get them to convert to buy the water in their performance channels, was 50% lower, right? So it kind of tells the story just as one case study of the power and contribution of premium video to all the other platforms. So it's contributing both content for people to talk about and also performance for advertisers to take advantage of it. I think what we want to do here is be telling the story in a more compelling way and telling it through automation and always on dashboards. So we're either educating or reminding people of the contribution of premium video in these other channels, and that there's a kind of a better together story where, CFOs and CMOs, it's not like, do I do brand or do I do performance, to your point earlier. Those things are intimately linked, right? And if you take your foot off the gas of call it brand or whatever category they put TV in, it's just going to raise the cost in your other other channels.
Yeah. And if I can be a conspiracy theorist for a minute, I do think as large tech companies like say Google are more in the TV business with
they're going to start agreeing with us. Yeah.
They're going to start to be like, brand is really important after saying everything was just about whoever clicked was the most important.
I think the story is to be friendly to everyone. It's all performance, right? It's just different parts of performance, right?
Depends on what you're selling.
But I think that TV, and I'll call it again premium video, the modern day premium video platform, is a bigger contributor than it has been traditionally credited with. And I think that is what the data is starting to bear. And we're bringing more data to prove that story and more automation to make that process easy.
And I think one of the things that has been a lesson is, technology platforms made it really easy to buy. They would have, a lot of the traditional media companies would have upfronts, and there's only a certain number of customers, and Google had millions. They have millions of customers, and just the ease of buying. And I think one of the hopes, I guess, for CTV is say it'll be democratized and advertising. How do you see that playing out? I would assume you would rather have millions of advertisers.
We the more the merrier, right? But these comparisons are not apples to apples, as I was even saying on the measurement side. Whereas TV is good at generating new demand and awareness, like the retargeting and stuff in some performance platforms are you can capture the interest that you've created in television. So I think saying that they need to look exactly alike is probably not where we're really headed. But certainly they need more customers than they traditionally had when they were doing business, call it manually, over cocktails in the upfronts.
Right.
And we've already seen that, I'm sure we'll talk about agentic in a minute and the possibilities there. But we've already seen that even with the advent of what now feels like traditional programmatic, right? So Peacock was a leader in programmatic activation in terms of our partnerships with the major DSPs. We were the first major media company to put live sports and make it available programmatically, including the Olympics, not this past Olympics, but even prior Olympics. And that's moved our kind of roster of advertisers from the hundreds or low thousands to the tens of thousands already. And I think that will get to the hundreds of thousands and beyond. Some of the newer iterations of that, just to go kind of further out on the long tail, is NBC in partnership, again, with Comcast, has launched Universal Ads, which it looks and feels more like an ads manager on a big tech platform. So it strips away some of the complexity of, call it an enterprise DSP, for a small and medium-sized business, or a D2C business that's kind of used to working in like an ads manager for a big tech platform. And it's just really looking for performance. So that accesses not just NBCUniversal, but FreeWheel's entire supply pool, which are other major TV broadcasters. And so that's a way of going further down the chain and bringing in local and small businesses to democratize access to them.
Yeah. So you mentioned agentic, and the word agentic was not frequency capped at Cannes. I don't think.
If it was, it's violated the caps, right? And someone owes a refund or something.
And just maybe it's me getting older and maybe being a little bit skeptical. I'm like, this is not real yet.
Yeah.
Like, agents are not out there transacting advertising. People are calling a lot of things agentic that are not truly agentic, and then they're arguing about what is agentic, what is not agentic, and that is all part of what weird process that we must go through. So unpack it for me. Tell me where I'm wrong and where I'm right.
I'd say you're wrong and right. I mean, like no one can argue with this sort of, we were talking about the is it Gartner hype cycle?
Gartner hype cycle.
The sort of the early stage of that, the triggering event, which I'm going to get all the names wrong, was like, ChatGPT and OpenAI. And then we've gone to and then there's maximum hype, right? Which is like, I'd say we're like maybe coming out of that phase and getting more into the reality phase of like, how we're going to, implement this. But I'd say, it's funny, everyone is talking about AI here, but even last year, arguably, it was like even more of a buzzword and more of an unknown. I think people are starting to hone in on real life use cases, that I can give you a couple. But to your point, I think there is a lot of mixture of hype and FOMO, and trying to get press releases out quickly, and overstatement and things like that. But generally speaking,
I'm not saying it's a felony.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, it's probably always existed in the world anyway, right? But I think I'll just speak for NBCUniversal. There are real life use cases that are live and being monetized today in a production environment that are 1,000% real. And then there's like the new pushing the boundaries of what AI can do that I think is still in progress. Some of the stuff, if I can, just for a minute, that has moved from sort of POC to production in terms of AI are capabilities first off in like what I would call hyper-contextual targeting. So this very old school advertising idea of showing the right ads to the right person at the right time, like, produces the best outcome. Arguably, TV has done a good job, I'd say, over the last 10 years improving the right ad, because there's new ad formats in CTV, new interactive ad formats, commerce-driven ad formats. The right person, the D2C model of streaming has allowed for more data about who you're reaching, right? So not just like a sampled panel, but also the DAI, the dynamic ad insertion of television now means you can personalize the ads. Where at the broadcast model, everyone saw the same ad regardless of who you were. So the combination of DAI and first-party data has made the right person more compelling in television. The right time, that third part of the trinity there, I think is where AI has really stepped in a compelling way. Because the right time maybe historically was like, I want to be in sports, I want to be in entertainment. But what if you are, a car company that wants to be around every like action movie auto car chase in the history of the movie library available on Peacock? But not only do you want to be around every car chase, but you want to be around car chases with a really positive vibe, so like within comedy action movies only. And you don't only want to be in that movie, but you want to be in the first ad in the pod right after that car chase. That's the type of stuff that we can now do. So we are running our entire library through an AI model, and we can pull out custom contextual tags on shows, movies, and we've optimized, back to the point of owning FreeWheel and owning part of that ad technology, the ability to insert those ads at the highest density moments of those contextual scene alignments. And what we've seen is not just that it's like some cool gimmick that like, okay, we can put this thing close to something that feels relevant, but we've then run that through measurement studies in terms of brand awareness, brand lift, search, checkout, using a variety of third-party measurement vendors. And, shocker, all the metrics go up when the ad is more relevant and placed in context that make more sense for the messaging. So that is a real live use case that is out and in market today. We're upgrading that starting in Q4 to live environments. So you can sponsor sports moments. So like if you want to, if there is if you want to sponsor you want to be the first ad after every buzzer beater in the NBA. Like those things are now passed in real time to the ad server. And if you have custom creative that refers to that queued up, that can be selected and relate back to a live event moment that just happened. So that's also coming this year in a real way. So that's on the sort of contextual targeting and performance side. And then on the automation of the operations, we launched our first in production buyer agent actually just this past week. And we had built a number of POCs on that, but it is a live agent that our partners at Horizon can go into their platform, their Blue platform, and talk to their agent and say, I'm interested in a Peacock campaign. What audiences do you have that might be relevant? They can upload their own audiences. They can ask for different content and genre targeting. They can do that all through the chat interface. They can take VAS tags and upload it directly to the agent and say, send this to the ad server. That goes directly in. They can ask for pacing reports, which are sent back to the agent. And so all of those things are real and happening today. Yeah. Now the full agent, I have an RFP brief. So I'll give you, so now that I've told you, just so you believe that I'm not just giving the sunny side, things that are more robust, here's my RFP brief to an agent. Give me rapidly respond with a whole RFP deck, all of our ad units, all of our marketing content integrate, a full brief that a marketing team would put together. Those are the things that are kind of in progress that I think are the next stage. And they link a bunch of different work streams, and they don't just talk to the ad server, but they might talk to, our product marketing suite. They might talk to other systems within that we have to kind of orchestrate together.
Yeah.
So call it more robust workflows that are multi-step, I think are the things that are still making progress, but still kind of to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take that. Thanks so much.
Fair?
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Great talking to you.